What did you do when your fiancé said, I still talk to my ex every day? I, 30F, thought I was marrying the kindest man I'd ever met. My fiancé Mark, 32M, was the type who remembered my coffee order, fixed the squeaky hinge on my apartment door without me asking, and sent me memes in the middle of the workday just to make me laugh. We'd been together for 2 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was set for early fall, something small but beautiful. I pictured a warm afternoon ceremony, strings of lights. The people who loved us most gathered in one place. About a month into our engagement, we were sitting on the couch, scrolling through Pinterest boards for wedding decor when he casually dropped it. I still talk to my ex every day. It wasn't even in response to anything, just out there. I remember blinking at him, waiting for the punchline. She's just my best friend, he said, like he'd been asked a question I hadn't asked. We dated years ago, but it didn't work out. We decided to stay close. She's basically like family. I knew about Emma. He'd mentioned her in passing when we first started dating. They were together for 4 years in their mid-20s. The not compatible long-term story. I'd never asked for details. It wasn't that I didn't believe exes could be friends, but every day caught in my throat. Like, texting? I asked. He nodded. Sometimes calls, sometimes FaceTime. Depends on the day. It's normal for us. I let it slide that night. I told myself not to be insecure. The first time I met Emma was at a friend's barbecue in June. She was tall, all confidence and easy laughter. The kind of person who made you feel like you were missing an inside joke. When Mark introduced us, she hugged him first, then turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. So you're the one who finally got him to settle down, she said, like she was still taking credit for half the work. Throughout the afternoon, she told story after story from their dating years, trips they took, arguments they'd laugh about now, the time they got stuck in an elevator in New York. Mark laughed along, sometimes adding details. I tried to join in, but it felt like sitting at the edge of a conversation that wasn't mine to be part of. Later that night, on the drive home, Mark said, "She really liked you." I didn't answer. 2 weeks later, we were having dinner at his mom's house when the topic of the bridal party came up. His sister was going to be one of my bridesmaids, and I asked who he was thinking of for his groomsmen. He grinned. "And Emma's going to be my maid of honor." I laughed, waiting for him to say, "Just kidding." He didn't. "It makes sense," he said. "We promised each other years ago we'd stand beside each other at our weddings. She knows me better than anyone." I felt my fork pause halfway to my mouth. "Better than me?" "That's not what I meant," he said quickly. "It's just, she's been there through everything. It's important to me." I nodded, but my stomach was tight for the rest of the meal. I didn't say no to the maid of honor idea right then. We were at his mom's dining table, his sister laughing about some old high school memory, and I didn't want to start something in front of everyone. But inside, I was reeling. In my head, a maid of honor was the person you called at 2 a.m. when the dress zipper broke, or the person who'd stand next to you while you ugly cried in the bridal suite. It was intimate, not something I imagined sharing with the woman my fiancé used to sleep next to every night. On the drive home, I finally said, "It feels weird to have your ex in that role." Mark kept his eyes on the road. "She's not just an ex. She's my best friend." I wanted to ask, "And I'm what then? The runner-up?" But I swallowed it. The first wedding planning meeting with Emma happened a week later. It wasn't official. Mark invited her over to catch up and then conveniently suggested we could all talk about the wedding. She showed up with a binder. A literal 3-ring binder with tabs for venue, vows, reception ideas, and colors. Mark looked impressed. "See? This is why she's perfect for this." Emma flipped to a page of floral arrangements. I was thinking blush roses with white ranunculus for the ceremony arch. I glanced at Mark. "I thought we were doing wildflowers?" Emma smiled. "Wildflowers are cute, but this will photograph better." Mark nodded like she'd just solved climate change. I tried to remind myself this was just the first meeting. Nothing was set in stone. 2 weekends later, we all ended up at a rooftop bar for a friend's birthday. The weather was perfect, string lights glowing overhead, music low enough that you could hear conversations. I caught a snippet of Emma and Mark's conversation when I went to grab another drink. "Remember our deal?" she said, grinning. "Whoever gets married first, the other one gets full creative control." Mark laughed. "Guess I'm stuck with you then." She tilted her head toward me, like she knew I was listening. "Oh, don't worry, I'll take good care of him." My cheeks burned. That night, in bed, I told Mark, "This feels like too much. I don't want her making all the decisions." He sighed. "You're overthinking. She's just excited for us." United States. The word hit different when one of the us didn't include me in the conversation. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new group chat. Bridal Dream Team. Members, me, Emma, 2 of my bridesmaids, Mark's sister, and Mark. The first message was from Emma. "Here's the updated mood board. Thoughts?" It was full of blush and gold tones, nothing like the sage green and cream I'd mentioned months ago. My 2 bridesmaids sent polite heart emojis. Mark replied, "Love it." I typed, "I thought we were doing sage." Emma's response came quick. "Sage can look muddy in photos." "Trust me." Mark sent a thumbs up. I stared at my phone, the pit in my stomach growing. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being our wedding. It was becoming hers. Our engagement party was at a small wine bar downtown. Warm lights, music low, the smell of fresh bread and rosemary drifting from the kitchen. I wore a cream wrap dress I'd picked weeks in advance. Mark wore the same smile he'd had the night he proposed. Emma arrived late, in a black satin slip dress, hair loose around her shoulders. She hugged Mark like they hadn't seen each other in years, even though I knew they'd had coffee the day before. Someone handed me a glass of champagne, and I got pulled into a conversation with Mark's aunt. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emma grab Mark's phone to take a selfie of the two of them, cheek to cheek, both holding up their glasses. The next morning, before I even had my coffee, my phone buzzed. A tag notification. Emma had posted the selfie with the caption, "My best friend is getting married." I scrolled through the comments. "Old flames never die. You two are still my favorite couple. Lucky bride." Mark had liked the post. I hadn't posted a single photo yet. The pictures from the party were still sitting in my camera roll. It felt like the announcement of my engagement had been made for me, just without me in it. When I mentioned it to Mark, he brushed it off. "She was just happy for us. Don't overthink it." But it didn't feel like us. It felt like them, with me as a footnote. A few weeks later, we had a planning meeting for the rehearsal dinner at a cozy Italian place. The table was long, covered in white linen, menus printed in looping script. Emma sat next to Mark, angled toward him, their heads bent together over the menu. "I think the penne arrabbiata would be better than lasagna for the main," she said, tapping the page. "It's lighter, and people can dance afterward without feeling stuffed." Mark nodded. "Good point." I glanced up. "I thought we were going with the lasagna. It's my dad's favorite." Emma tilted her head, smiling like she was humoring a child. "It's one dinner. He can eat lasagna anytime." The conversation moved on before I could respond. They discussed the playlist next, her suggestion of indie folk songs replacing the Motown classics I'd picked with my bridesmaids. I tried to steer it back. "We could do a mix. Some Motown, some indie." Emma cut in. "Too many genres will make it messy. Trust me, I've done events before." Mark agreed again. I sat back in my chair, fingers gripping the stem of my wine glass. It wasn't just about pasta or playlists anymore. It was the way decisions were being made without me, in front of me, like my input was optional. By the end of the night, I felt like an extra at a table where my name should have been on the menu. By the time the bridal party group chat had been active for a week, it was obvious who was running the show, and it wasn't me. Emma posted multiple times a day, screenshots of Pinterest boards, links to must-have decor, bullet lists of decisions we should make ASAP. She even created Google Docs for each section of the wedding. One Monday morning, I woke up to 32 unread messages. Overnight, Emma had sent a mock-up of the reception table settings: gold chargers, blush napkins, crystal water goblets. I scrolled through the replies. "This looks amazing," from one bridesmaid. "Love it," from Mark. Thumbs up emoji from his sister. I typed, "I thought we were doing sage green napkins to match the flowers." Emma replied within seconds. "Sage can photograph kind of dull. Blush will pop more, especially in outdoor lighting." Mark followed with, "Yeah, blush looks great." It wasn't a discussion, it was a verdict. When I mentioned it to Mark later, he shrugged. "She's just trying to help. She has an eye for this stuff." I bit back the urge to say, "It's my wedding. Shouldn't I be the one with the eye for it?" 2 weeks later, I got a text from my maid of honor, my actual maid of honor, asking if we'd change the bridesmaid dresses. I had no idea what she was talking about. She sent me a screenshot from the group chat. Emma had posted a photo of champagne-colored gowns with a caption, "Thinking we should go with this palette. It'll tie in with the blush and gold perfectly." In the comments, Mark had written, "Yes, this, so classy." I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. We had already chosen dresses, sage green, floor length, with pockets. Everyone had placed their orders. I jumped into the chat. "We already picked the dresses. They're ordered," Emma replied. "Some sites do returns." "This will elevate the whole look," Mark added. "It's not too late to switch." I could feel my face getting hot, even though I was alone in my apartment. I messaged Mark privately. "We are not changing the dresses. People have paid for them. This isn't her call." He answered, "Babe, relax. She's just thinking of what will look best in photos." That word, photos, hit me harder than it should have. It made it sound like the wedding was a staged shoot, not a day about the two of us. Or maybe it was about the two of them, and I was just the one wearing the white dress. That night, I told my best friend from college about it over the phone. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you realize she's basically treating this like it's her wedding?" The scary thing was, I couldn't argue with that. It was a rainy Thursday night when Emma dropped her next idea into the group chat. Thought of something special for the ceremony. What if I read this poem right before the vows? It's perfect for Mark and me. I mean, for the vibe we're going for. Attached was a screenshot of a poem about love and resilience, written in that abstract, romantic style that sounds profound if you don't think too hard. At first, I skimmed it and thought, sure, whatever. But then a line jumped out at me. The night on the Brooklyn Bridge when the rain didn't stop us. It felt oddly specific. Too specific. Later that night, when Mark got home from work, I asked, "Hey, that poem Emma sent, what's with the Brooklyn Bridge thing?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Oh, that's just from a trip we took years ago." It was pouring rain, but we still walked across. She probably just likes the imagery. My chest tightened. So, she wants to read a poem with one of your relationship memories in it at our wedding? Mark sighed. You're reading too much into it. It's just a poem. I wanted to scream, then why is it about you two? But instead, I just nodded, because I was too tired to argue. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop picturing it. Emma standing there in front of our families, speaking about the night on the Brooklyn Bridge, like she was telling a piece of our love story, and Mark letting her. I decided to have a real calm conversation with Mark the next day. No accusations, just boundaries. We sat at my kitchen table over coffee. I told him, I'm not comfortable with Emma reading that poem. It's tied to your history together. This is supposed to be about you and me. Mark rubbed the back of his neck. She won't mean it like that. She's trying to make the day special. For who? I asked quietly. He frowned. Don't make this awkward. She's my best friend. She's not trying to compete with you. But she is inserting herself into moments that should be ours, I said. First the flowers, then the dresses, now the ceremony itself. He cut me off. You're overreacting. If you keep making this a big deal, it's just going to create tension. There it was again. My feelings rebranded as tension. 2 nights later, we had a joint dinner with his family to go over some wedding logistics. I was in the middle of explaining my idea for the reception layout when Emma walked in late, slid into the seat next to Mark, and immediately said, So about the ceremony, did you tell her I'm reading the poem? Mark chuckled. Yeah, we talked. She's fine with it. I froze. Emma smiled at me across the table, like she'd won something. Great, I'll start practicing. I forced a smile back, but inside it felt like something inside me was cracking. This wasn't just about a poem anymore. It was about being erased, decision by decision, right in front of everyone. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I don't remember what we ate, or the jokes Mark's uncle made, or how we got home. I just remember the sound of Emma's voice saying, I'll start practicing, and the way Mark's hand stayed on the back of her chair the entire meal. The engagement party incident should have been my wake-up call, but I told myself not to blow it out of proportion. Then came the bridal shower. It was hosted at Mark's sister's house, a cozy living room filled with flowers, cupcakes, and stacks of neatly wrapped gifts. I'd barely set my purse down before Emma swooped in, looping her arm through Mark's. She had a camera slung around her neck and was directing people where to sit, where the gifts should go, even which corner would have the best lighting for photos. When it was time to open gifts, I noticed she'd positioned herself right beside Mark, snapping pictures of him reacting to my presence. At one point, his cousin handed me a small box, and before I could even open it, Emma said, Oh, this one's from me and Mark. I blinked. From you and Mark? She grinned. Yeah, we picked it out together. Inside was a set of engraved champagne flutes with M and M etched on the glass. My initials weren't even included. Laughter rippled through the room. Mark laughed too, saying, It's just a joke, like old times. I smiled for the cameras, but in my head the thought was screaming, This is my bridal shower, not some nostalgia tour. A few days later, one of my bridesmaids, Lena, texted me, Hey, just checking in. Are you okay? I asked why, and she hesitated before replying. Emma's been talking to a few of the bridal party about making some adjustments to the reception timeline. She said you were fine with it. I wasn't. No one had even told me there was a new timeline. Lena sent me a screenshot from a smaller group chat I wasn't in. Emma had written, OP's been super stressed, so I'm taking a few things off her plate. Mark agrees it's for the best. Below that was a bullet list. Switch first dance song to something less cliché. Her suggestion. Move speeches earlier in the evening to keep the energy up. Scrap the bouquet toss because it's outdated. All decisions I had already made, all changed without me. That night I confronted Mark. I saw the messages, I said, holding out my phone. Why is Emma telling people I approved changes I didn't? Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. She's just trying to help. You have been stressed. Because she's taking over everything, I snapped, and you're letting her. His voice hardened. If you keep making this about some rivalry in your head, you're going to ruin the wedding. There it was again. My feelings reframed as a threat to the wedding, as if the wedding was more important than the marriage. I walked out of the room before I said something I couldn't take back. In the hallway, I could still hear their laughter from the bridal shower echoing in my ears. It was no longer about small decisions or personal touches. This was about control, and I was losing mine, piece by piece, to the woman wearing the maid of honor title like a crown. It happened exactly 1 week before the wedding. I was at our apartment scrolling through my emails when a new message popped up from the DJ. The subject line read, Finalizing reception materials. I opened it, expecting to see the song list we'd already approved. Instead, there was a link to a Google Drive folder labeled M&M Memories. Curious, I clicked. It wasn't our engagement photos. It wasn't pictures of me and Mark. It was a slideshow, over 50 images, of Mark and Emma through the years. Mark in a Halloween costume with Emma on his back, both laughing so hard their eyes were shut. Mark and Emma at some beach bonfire, her head resting on his shoulder. Mark and Emma holding up a cheap diner pie with Happy Birthday Best Friend, scrawled in whipped cream. In the middle, there was even a photo of them in formal wear, dancing together at what looked like her prom. The last slide was the two of them on the Brooklyn Bridge in the rain, exactly like the poem she wanted to read. My hands were shaking. I scrolled to the notes section at the end, to be played during the Maid of Honor speech. Music, Your Song, by Elton John. I slammed my laptop shut and called Mark immediately. Why is there a slideshow of you and Emma for the reception? I demanded. He hesitated. It's just something she put together for her speech. She wanted to surprise you. A surprise? My voice cracked. Mark, half of those pictures look like a dating history, not a friendship. She's my best friend. People will understand, he said, like that explained everything. Understand what? That my maid of honor is dedicating part of my wedding reception to herself and you? He sighed. You're making this into something it's not. It's harmless. It's humiliating, I said quietly. And you don't even see it. There was a long pause. Then he said, Look, if you make me choose between you and Emma... I cut him off. I'm not making you choose. You already did. I hung up before he could answer. For the first time in months, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It was the kind of calm that comes right before you finally stop tolerating something. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every harmless moment I'd brushed off over the past few months. The blush napkins, the dress code switch, the poem, the champagne flutes with her initials, the timeline changes I never approved, and now, a slideshow. 50 photos of a love story that wasn't mine, set to play at my wedding. By morning, the decision was made. I drove to my mom's house and told her everything. I expected her to tell me to calm down, to not ruin the wedding, to keep the peace. Instead, she just listened. When I was done, she said, Sweetheart, if this is what it looks like now, imagine what it'll look like in your marriage. Something about hearing it from her, out loud, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. That afternoon, I went back to our apartment. Mark was on the couch, scrolling his phone. He looked up and smiled like nothing was wrong. Hey, babe. Can we talk? I asked. He set his phone down. Sure. Is this about the slideshow again? Because... No, I interrupted. This is about the fact that you've let Emma take over every part of this wedding. And you've defended her every single time I've tried to set a boundary. He rubbed his forehead. We've been over this. You're overreacting. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger and set it on the coffee table. Mark stared at it. What are you doing? I'm giving you what you've been too afraid to admit you want, I said. You can have your wedding with Emma in it however you want. I just won't be the one standing there. His face went pale. You're seriously calling it off over this? I'm calling it off because you made me the third wheel in my own engagement, I said, and I refuse to sign up for a lifetime of that. I picked up my overnight bag from the corner. It had been packed since last night. Without another word, I walked out. In the hallway, I heard him call my name, but I didn't stop. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking, not from fear, from relief. The next morning, I woke up at my mom's house to a string of missed calls and texts from Mark. Mark, we can still fix this. Just call me. Mark, please don't make any rash decisions. Mark, Emma feels terrible. She wants to talk. I didn't answer. Instead, I grabbed my laptop, logged into the shared wedding email account, and started changing passwords. DJ photographer, venue, catering, all switched to my personal email. Then I opened the bridal party group chat. The first thing I saw was a pinned message from Emma. Hey ladies, just confirming dress fitting on Thursday. Can't wait to see you all there. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I typed, I won't be attending. I'm stepping back from the wedding. Please direct any questions to Mark or Emma. I hit send and left the chat. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Lena called twice, another bridesmaid texted, WTF happened? But I ignored them. Next was Instagram. I removed myself from every tagged engagement photo, every bridal countdown post Emma had made. I unfollowed her, then Mark. It felt clean, like cutting a rope that had been digging into my skin. By mid-afternoon, I'd packed the rest of my things from Mark's apartment. My mom came with me. He wasn't home, but Emma's shoes were by the door. I didn't linger. I stuffed my clothes into bags, took my plants from the window ledge, and left the ring box on the coffee table where he'd see it. Driving away, I realized there was no sadness in the pit of my stomach, just an odd, steady relief. The kind you get when you've been holding your breath for too long and finally exhale. That night, I turned off my phone and let it die. For the first time in months, there was silence. Not the suffocating silence of being talked over, dismissed, or erased. A silence I owned. The wedding was on a Saturday. By then, my phone had been off for 3 days. I'd blocked Mark's number, muted half the bridal party, and told my mom not to answer any unknown calls. Still, part of me wondered, would they actually go through with it? That afternoon, Lena showed up at my mom's house with a coffee and a look on her face that was somewhere between pity and disbelief. I just came from the ceremony, she said, setting the cup in front of me. It was something. I braced myself. How bad? She laughed, short and humorless. Emma wore white. I blinked. You're joking. Nope. Not full bridal white. More like champagne, but under the lights? Yeah, it looked white, and she did the slideshow. I felt my stomach turn. Lena leaned in. Here's the thing. Without you there, It didn't land. Half the guests didn't even know who she was. People were whispering, asking why the maid of honor was in so many romantic pictures with the groom. His aunt actually pulled him aside and said it was inappropriate. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Apparently, during the reception, Emma gave her speech, complete with the Brooklyn Bridge photo, and someone in the back muttered loud enough for others to hear, "This is weird." By the time she wrapped up, the applause was scattered. "And Mark?" I asked. Lena shrugged. He looked embarrassed, not angry, just like it finally hit him. But by then it was too late. I imagined him standing there, realizing that without me, the wedding was just a performance with the wrong lead. Lena squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing, you know." I didn't answer, not because I doubted it, but because I didn't need to say it out loud. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the porch, and let the cool air wash over me. Somewhere across town, Emma was probably uploading a carousel of wedding photos. Mark was probably in them, smiling like nothing had gone wrong. But I knew better, because there had been an empty chair in the front row where I was supposed to sit. And no slideshow, no speech, no champagne flutes with the wrong initials could fill it. It's been 2 weeks since the wedding. I haven't spoken to Mark. I haven't spoken to Emma. I haven't even looked at their social media, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't hear things. You don't need to stalk someone when you share friends. The updates find you. Apparently, the wedding photos went up on Facebook 3 days after the ceremony. Out of the 200 pictures the photographer delivered, Emma posted an album of 30, 20 of which featured her and Mark. Not them as a group, not Mark and her with the bridal party, just them. Lena told me the comment started off polite. "Beautiful. Congrats." But it didn't take long for the tone to shift. A distant cousin asked, "Why is the maid of honor in more photos than the bride?" Someone else replied with a laughing emoji. Within a day, Emma turned off comments on the album. Mark, on the other hand, didn't post anything. Not a single wedding picture. His Instagram still has our engagement photo pinned at the top, which feels like some kind of oversight. Or maybe a statement he doesn't realize he's making. I don't know what's going on between them, but Lena said she saw them at a local coffee shop last week, and the vibe was tense. No touching, no laughing, just two people staring at their drinks. When she told me that, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad either. It was more like watching the credits roll on a movie I'd already walked out of halfway through. My mom keeps saying, "You dodged a bullet." I think she's right, but I also think it's more complicated than that. It's not just that I avoided marrying the wrong person, it's that I avoided becoming invisible in my own life. And now, the quiet feels different, not the lonely kind I felt when Mark and Emma were planning my wedding without me. This is the kind of quiet that comes when you've reclaimed your space. I still haven't unboxed everything from the move. Some days I leave the suitcase half open in the corner, like proof that I can leave again if I need to. But every morning, I make coffee in my own kitchen. I drink it without checking my phone for texts from someone explaining away another harmless boundary violation. And for now, that's enough. A few nights ago, I found the notebook where I'd been scribbling wedding ideas months ago. Venue sketches, color palettes, song lists. On one page, I'd written, "First dance, Nora Jones, come away with me," and circled it 3 times. It's funny, I couldn't even tell you what song they ended up using. I closed the notebook and put it at the bottom of a drawer. Not because it hurt to see, but because it didn't feel like mine anymore. Those pages belonged to a version of me who thought she had a partner, not a co-star in someone else's nostalgia play. Sometimes I think about the day at the BBQ when I first met Emma. If I could go back and stand next to myself in that moment, I'd tell her, "Pay attention. This is the first ripple." But I know she wouldn't have listened. She wanted to believe the best in people, and maybe that's not a flaw. It's just a lesson you only learn the hard way. I'm not angry at Emma anymore. I think she needed to win something that wasn't hers, and maybe she thought this wedding was it. I'm not even angry at Mark, not in the way I was before. He showed me exactly who he was, someone who'd rather keep an old flame burning than light a new one with me. The apartment I'm renting now has a little balcony that faces west. Most evenings, I sit out there with a glass of wine, watching the sun dip behind the buildings. The other day, a neighbor waved at me from her balcony and asked if I wanted to come over for dinner. I said yes without overthinking it. It struck me later. That was the first spontaneous yes I've given in months that wasn't followed by regret. I don't know when I'll be ready to date again. I don't feel pressure to decide. For now, I'm learning to take up space in my own life without waiting for permission. And that's not the kind of thing you can put on a registry, but it's the best gift I've ever given myself. Last night, I charged my phone for the first time in days. When it powered on, there were a few missed calls from an unknown number and 1 voicemail. I didn't recognize the voice at first. It was Mark. He didn't sound angry, just tired. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now, but I am." He didn't ask me to call back. He didn't try to explain. It was less than 15 seconds long. I didn't delete it right away, but I didn't save it either. I just let it sit there, knowing the phone would eventually clear it on its own. Later, while cleaning, I found the small wooden box where I used to keep our engagement ring when I wasn't wearing it. It still had a faint indent in the velvet where the band had rested. I carried it out to the balcony. The city was buzzing below, but up there it felt private. I took the ring indent between my fingers and pressed it flat until the mark disappeared. Then I put the box in the recycling bin, No big speech, no dramatic music, just a small thing undone. Before bed, I scrolled through my contacts and found Mark's name. I hovered over the unblock option for a moment, not because I wanted to talk to him, but because I realized blocking him wasn't the point anymore. I didn't need the wall. I had the distance. So I unblocked him, and then I put my phone face down on the nightstand and turned out the light. I don't know if he'll ever call again. I don't care if he does. The last thing I heard before falling asleep was the quiet hum of my fridge, steady and ordinary. And for the first time in a long time, ordinary felt perfect.